Greetings and welcome to In-Depth. I'm Dike Rostant. November is a month centered around men's health awareness. Behaviour change consultant and Chief Executive Officer of IODK Consultancy, Yohance Ayodike, he joins us to put men's health front and center. I want to thank you for joining us, Mr. Ayodike. Now, going through some definitions with my daughter, I realized that there's so many things when we talk about health, but when we say health, what do you mean?
Well, I'll go first within my field, so mental health. Mental health is the quality to which you think, feel, and behave. So depending on how congruent it is to your environment. So if you are acting, thinking, or behaving in a way that is maladaptive or unhealthy towards the environment, then your mental health decrease. If you're acting in a way that is healthy or adaptive towards or that helps you thrive in the environment, then I would say mental health is on the higher spectrum. So that's my definition.
Okay, but one of the things that really stood out to me, because yes, you spoke about, and this is that definition that I was going through with my daughter, but physical, mental, and can't remember if it's financial or spiritual, but well-being, and it was more, and the definition went on to say it is more than the absence of ill health or disease. So in terms of, like, sometimes when we think health, we just think, okay, everything working today, physically.
I like that, the well-being, right? Even though we could look for a dictionary meaning of well-being, I like well-being because when I think about it, somebody asks me, how are you? And I say, I am well, right? What I mean is physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially. When I'm thinking about wellness, is really a holistic approach to things.
And when people ask me that, I normally say I'm working on it. So it's never really there. But
now you gotta claim it,
but I know when I say word and sound equal power, so possibly it's something I need to look at a little more. But in terms of making that distinction now and going into men's health, what are some of the nuances that come into play when we include men into the equation of health or well-being?
I would say men deciding or understanding what their role is, right? And not necessarily general role in society, but what is that man's role in his life, in his sphere. So it could be father, but some men are not fathers. And then I will add, some men are not biological fathers, right? You may be a father, a son, a brother, an uncle, a cousin, a employee or employer, right? Those are different roles that you take. So based on that, then now you could decide how well or my well-being in any of these areas, right? And then when you understand what your role is, and you could maybe do an audit of how well you're doing to know which level of health. So let's just say if you're a provider of finances, if you know you need to provide $100 a month and you could only make $90 a month, your financial health needs some working on. If you know you have a son or a daughter and you need to play with them and you realize you could only play 5 minutes and then you get tired, right? Then you need to put some work into your physical health, right? If let's just say you go to work and you realize after work you have no energy or no emotional space for your wife, then you may have to put some work into your emotional health. So it's really defining your roles, your role, individual role as a man, and then understanding what is your level of well-being in executing these.
And I like that you say that, because I think sometimes it's almost a matter of defining yourself by your roles. But if you define yourself by your roles, then you run the risk of, if you're not able to fulfill those roles, then who are you? So is there a matter of working out, this is who I am, and these are the roles that the onus is on me to fulfill, so that the thought process is a little different if you're not able to Because you know, sometimes people say, well, you can't do that, what kind of man you is?
Yes. And I'm glad you made that distinction. So let's go with who you are, right? As the mass, and then you're branching out as the roles, right? But of course, who you are, if you understand who you are, then it will lead into the rules. So let's just say I like to make jokes. So as a father, I'll be somebody who making jokes because I'm ensuring that is who I am, but still executing the role. As an employer, I might still be joking, I might be serious, but I still might be making a joke. So I like you make that distinction because even when doing workshops and series, right, on any topic, what I go to first is helping participants understand who you are. Before even talking about stress and any of those other things, understand who you are. So let's just say when we were born as men, right? We were born as sons, so we had a role at that moment, but we didn't have a lot of other of these defined roles. Understanding who you are. And we hear that a million times, you know. We usually hear know yourself. And many questions I would get is how do you know yourself? And this is my technique. Don't tell a lie. If you be truthful 100% of the times, easier said than done. But if you be truthful 100% of the times, you will discover who you are. Because you will know, you know what, this roti, do I have enough chicken? That is not who I am. I want 10 pieces of chicken in my roti. Now I'm starting something trivial, right? You know what kind of car you want to drive. You know what kind of company you want to keep. You know what kind of wife you want. You know what kind of friends you want. You know what kind of job you want, right? Now, even though you may not be able to get it immediately, but working towards the truth of yourself, saying it, somebody ask you, let me get a job downtown, you know you don't want to get them the job. Just say no. Come online with me on the avenue. You're thinking, you know, if I say no, maybe they will think this, maybe they will think that, and the other, and you're not being your true self. So therefore, you won't discover exactly who you are.
And looking at that Oracle of Delphi, know thyself, to being able to live in your truth, I think is something that's a daily journey. Because even like for me, there was a point in time I would quicker know who I am because I'm saying, okay, I'm not that.
Right.
So moving from saying, okay, well, I'm not that to describe yourself to saying, okay, I am this is work.
Yeah.
Is work. So
It
people
takes
talk
some
about
courage,
shadow
you know.
work.
It
People
takes
talk
courage.
But the reason that we're having this conversation now is because we were put on to each other by a gentleman. So in looking, give me a little, I don't know if a backstory overview or what's that initiative about?
No, I was contacted by Dr. Brian Harry, who is an old QRC boy because I also went to QRC. So we within the network, and he wanted to start a men's health initiative, and he wanted to start it because one of his friends passed away. I believe it was from prostate cancer. Now, what he was saying is that no one knew he was ill. It was almost like one day I go in the hospital, next day I end up deceased. And he was saying that this man have had so much he thinks to contribute to society, so he died too soon. But this guy was good at his job, good with his family, but he neglected his health. So Brian Harry's idea was, and because he's from QRC, and of course we are a fraternity of men, you know, he wouldn't want something like this to happen to anyone else. So let's start an initiative, let's start a drive, let's educate even from Form 1 all the way up to we older men. I would not say old men, but we older men, for us to understand the importance of taking care of your health. And at that time, he was thinking about specifically physical health. But I'm not too sure where the shift came. I mean, if you're thinking about physical health, somewhere along the line, mental health must come into play. So that's where he also contacted me because of my profession. So he's like, you know, let us do both. Let us create the balance. And that's where we are today.
In terms of that balance, we want to make sure we do have a big half and a smaller half. So we're going to take a short break now, and when we come back, we're having a conversation with Mr. Yohance IODK. Stay with us. We return after this. Welcome back. We are having a conversation going to different points about men and men's health. We're doing so with Chief Executive Officer of IODK Consultancy, Yohance Ayodike. And we just spoke about Dr. Brian Harry and looking at this idea, but the road to hell paved with good intentions. So starting to roll the idea out. What is the first set of things or low-hanging fruit that you wanted to capture, deal with, address?
This is the first step. The first step, one, awareness. So letting people know that the QRC community is deciding to do this men's health initiative. Now the plan is to do something once a month, every month from now until next year November, where we celebrate or the culmination of everything for Men's Health Month 2024, right? And we saying about the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? What I like is the consistency. Now, in couples counseling, right? What a lot of women complain about is inconsistency in their husband. And I believe that a man's role, if he is being the provider and protector, there has to be a level of consistency. And I think consistency, this is my opinion, is also a masculine trait. So whatever we say we do and we do, that's how you be a man of your word. You have to actually do it. So in my brief life on this earth, because I'm not 40 years old yet, so I'm not claiming to be an old man yet. Since I'm young, I hear men talking about what we're supposed to do. I hear people complaining about things, and you would get a big surge of energy and be doing this, and it lasts a week, it lasts a month, and then we don't hear anything about it until next year or until next Men's Month. So the idea now is to do something every month, even if it's something small, even if we have this simple conversation every month, speaking about men's mental health, men's physical health. We get different people in, just speaking about it. That's a win for me. Now we want to do more. We want to do things like walkathons. We want to do different health initiatives every month leading up to it, right? Focused on men and boys. But let's just say that doesn't happen. No, but it will. Even this conversation, I think, is an important part of it.
And that level of consistency, because even like this pen that I got from the SC Magic Foundation, it speaks to better boys, better men. So there's a level of consistency that you go and, okay, well, looking at the seed and envisioning the fruit and saying, okay, well, these are those incremental steps that we need to get there, whether not you mold, you weed, you water, you make sure that things are happening in a certain way. But that space, if we can continue to speak about plants, that space to grow, that space that allows for vulnerability. How do we start to make those spaces among the people that we cultivate those circles with, but even before that within ourselves? Because I think sometimes men don't necessarily give themselves the grace to do certain things, to fall, to fail, to cry, to be vulnerable, knowing that is in that vulnerability that growth can take place, because nothing really necessarily happens in the comfort zone.
Very true. I think that leading by example, what we do in here, us just speaking, right? We speaking openly, vulnerably. When other men see it consistently, it will give them the avenue or even the encouragement or the impetus to do it. As simple as that. That's the simplest answer. Us leading by example, consistently.
In terms of that leading, and one thing is leading, is another thing to have people say to come on board. But it seems as though Dr. Harry has had some individuals come on board, because you spoke about the network, some people talk about the community, but there have been people and different professions saying, okay, well, this is something that I want to be a part of. What has that response been like? Because I think you've been getting some of that feedback as well.
Yes. People, and these are older men, I'm saying older men now because above the age of 45, they are enthusiastic to join because they see the effects of it, right? I mean, some of us youths, right? We may not see it, we may think we're invincible, but from their end of the spectrum, even though some of them are not in the medical field, they themselves see the importance of initiative like this, of educating the younger men about their health. Because sometimes, because we men most times have a one-track mind. I want to provide and protect for my family. I want to be a success. I want to reach the highest I could reach in my job or academia. I'm not thinking about anything else. And then when we get ill, you say, you know what, maybe I should have really do this. Maybe I should have. And what I appreciate about these older men who are willing to help is that they are taking up their role as elders. Because sometimes, the elders may not want to help, but they decided, you know what, let me educate the youth. I may not have done it, or I could have done a better job. So now I will let the youth know these are the things that you should look for.
And it's interesting because I remember my dad talking about a difference between elders and olders. Because sometimes you may have somebody who has 25 years experience, but then sometimes you may have somebody who has 1 year of experience 25 times. So they haven't necessarily moved from where they were. They have tenure in the game of life, in the sense that they're older than you. But are you the person that what qualifies them apart from just age to be able to give, to share, to be a part of helping to build the capacity? But I think it's really important that individuals see the difference that it can make, and especially in a time where it seems as though there's so much content that is created and people can see it in a flash on devices, but it's not necessarily telling the whole truth, because we started off speaking about truth and speaking truth and living truth. But in the 1.5 minutes that we have, coming from this conversation, what would you like people, men, to take away from it?
One is men. One, be consistent. Whatever you're deciding to do, be consistent with it. That's one. Two is look at life a little more holistically, right? And I'm going to say something that might be a little controversial. Sometimes men listen to your wife, right? Because sometimes women see things a little more holistically than us. We could pick up something and execute it and go gung-ho with it. But the health part, because as women usually say, go to the doctor, take care. I find you moving a little different, right? So one, I said also listen to your wife, but then I'll add it, listen to your body, because we know when we're in pain, we know when something wrong. But I don't want to find out, or I'll rough it out, or I'll sweat it out. If that pain, also we talk about consistency, if that pain or discomfort is consistent, it means that something could be wrong. So hour by the doctor wouldn't hurt. An hour away from your work, from your job, from your profession, from your studies, that hour could save you 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, where you could be able to provide and protect, or whatever role that you're undertaking. You could spend more time in that role by taking that 1 hour.
So glad that the second time we didn't say sometimes. Because even if you say, well, I'm hearing you, I'm listening to you, but I'm going to take another course of action, listen always. Because that sometimes is something to put me, I say me in problems. But I want to thank you very much for the time, and thank you for your insight, Yohance IODK. And on behalf of the entire TTT News team, this has been In Depth with me, Dike Rostant. Thank you so much for joining us.